Hey YouTube, today we're going to talk about a subject that I've covered a little bit before in the past, but I recently watched a video and I want to put my 2 cents worth in. We're going to do a video on if the 1911 pistol is still relevant in today's time. And before we get started, I'm going to let you know that all 3 of these pistols have been safety checked before I turned on this camera, and we are cleared to make this video. As I pick them up, I will show you there's nothing in them. So, subject today is the 1911 pistol still relevant? Well, a lot of the newer people that are in the firearms and the younger generation people do not think it is. And folks, I'm just here to tell you, they're wrong. You can listen to me, they are 100% wrong. So we'll start off with, go to any gun show in any state, anytime, on any weekend, and what are you going to see? You're going to see a lot of these things laying around, and the reason you're going to see a lot of them laying around is people still buy them. And we're going to talk about why people still buy them and what are some of the advantages that they have over these new modern hyper guns here. So we'll start off with looking at this 1911, and we'll show you some of the features of a 1911. 1911 was introduced, guess when, folks? It was introduced in 1911, and this one happens to be just a plain Jane Colt Series 70 government model. This is about as plain as they get in the 1911 world. There's no kind of bells or whistles on it. This is just what a 1911 looks like. So what makes these things awesome? Pretty much everything. They look awesome. The trigger design on this thing is a straight back trigger, and it's a single action only. So even this plain Jane gun right here, this plain Jane, nothing done to it, no bells or whistles. You'll see the amount of take up on this. You're not going to get a better feeling trigger on any handgun, I don't care what it is, made in today's time than a 1911. And we're going to do a reset on this thing real close and show you. That is the reset, and there's the trigger. So I would say that trigger pull is somewhere probably in the 4 to 4.5 pound range on a regular 1911 such as this. Now, single action only means when you pull the trigger again, it will not go off again. After you cock this hammer back, pull the trigger, it will not fire again without the hammer being cocked. And we'll get into that a little more here in a minute. But there's no crazy beaver tails or any kind of crazy hammers on this thing or anything ambidextrous or anything. This is just a regular government model Colt 1911. It is a pretty one because Colt really did well on finishing guns off in the 1970s. This was made in the mid 1970s, but nothing special about it. Now, what makes this thing so awesome? Well, the trigger pull alone would make me want to buy it over anything modern to these days. The another thing is the way this thing's designed and the lockup. These are one of the most accurate shooting handguns that you can buy, folks. I mean, hands down. If you put this in like a bench rest next to either one of these two here, this thing's always going to prevail. Now, some of the disadvantages to it is going to be its capacity. This is going to be an 8+1 capacity, and some of these modern double stack guns are going to hold a lot more. But you also got to think this is a full-size handgun, so we're going to compare that to 2 full-size handguns. What are you using these things for, folks? You're not using them to carry. I mean, neither one of these are going to be concealed carries either. They're just very large, and they're going to be really hard to carry. So mainly this is going to be either a home defense setup or just a range toy. And I know firearms aren't toys, but we'll just call them toys when you go to the range with them, range toys. So extra magazines fixes that problem. If you're taking it to the range, you just have a bunch of extra magazines, like I do with every handgun that I have. I always stock up on magazines because I like to spend more time shooting than I do loading. So extra magazines fixes it. Now, a lot of people think, especially the younger generation, that these guns aren't safe because when they watch somebody carrying this around, they're like, oh my god, look at that thing. That hammer's cocked back, and that is dangerous. That is going to go off. Folks, that's not true. If I sat there, and first of all, it's got a safety on it right here. There's safety in it. It will not go off with the safety on. But let's take the safety off. It also has a grip safety on it. If that grip safety is not engaged, I can't even pull this trigger right now. It will not go off at all. You have to have your hand on the grip safety for this gun to go off. So basically you have 2 steps. When you draw this out, you have to take the safety off, and you have to be holding on to the thumb safety for this gun to ever go off. And let's compare that to maybe this Glock right here. Everybody loves these things, and I'm going to tell you why they love them. There are 2 reasons. They're very reliable, and they're cheap. And there's no other better way to say it, folks. These are very cheap firearms, and almost anybody that has any interest in firearms can afford one of these. They're cheap. They do not cost as much as these because they're not made as well of materials. This is all plastic polymer on the bottom, and it has a metal slide on the top of it. Cheap, cheap, cheap. That's why people like them. And people will argue to the death that something is better because that's what they own. If they had both of these together, there's nobody going to tell you that this is a better gun than this one. Now, what's the advantages of this one? Well, the capacity. This one holds 13 plus 1. So you're going to have a 14 round capacity and 45 ACV versus a total of 9. So you're going to have 5 more rounds of this. But you're not concealed carrying this around, folks. This thing is huge. It's absolutely huge. And if you look at it, it's a lot wider than the 1911. It's going to be about the same length, but you see how much wider it is than the 1911. That's how you get the extra capacity on it. This is a bulky gun, and if you have small hands, this is not the one for you. But do I think it's a bad gun? I absolutely do not. One of the things about the Glock is it's got a weird grip angle, and there's not a lot of people out here going to tell you that this doesn't have a weird grip angle. If you grab a 1911, it's much more ergonomic and feels a lot more comfortable in your hands because of the grip angle and the way this thing is shaped. The Glock is not, folks. It's just a weird grip angle. Now let's get into the safety mechanism. So if I rack this slide back and I have a hammer that's cocked back and ready to go, no safety on or anything right now. If I rack this Glock off open, which one looks safer? Well, obviously the Glock's gonna look safer to the people that are uneducated and not very smart, because they don't understand that there's a striker mechanism in here that is cocked, the same as this one. The only difference in this one is you can see this one, and it makes people that are uneducated worry too much. This gun, if you carry it the correct way, it's got a safety on it. This does not. So if I have this in a holster and some maniac reaches in there and pulls the trigger like this, it won't go off. If some maniac reaches in there and pulls the trigger of this one, it's going off. There is no safety anywhere on this gun, none, except for this right here. This is your safety. Now it does have drop safe stuff on the inside, so if you dropped it here, it's not going to go off, but there is no safety on this gun besides this safety, which is the most important safety, your trigger finger. This gun here has 2 external safeties. It has your thumb safety and it has your grip safety right here. So this gun is actually, if you want to get down to the brass tacks, is going to be a safer gun. And people that think that these things aren't safe because the hammer's cocked back when people are carrying it around are not educated, and you should not listen to anything they have to say. Now, if you go on looks alone, which one actually looks better? Well, I don't think there's a lot of people that's going to tell you that this Colt 1911 doesn't look a lot more stunning than this brick right here, this Glock right here. And folks, this is not a Glock hating video. I'm just giving you the facts. This gun does not look as aesthetically pleasing as this Colt 1911. Now, you can buy, usually, if you get a good 1911, a decent one, you can usually buy about 2 Glocks that you can buy one 1911. So you're going to be able to get 2 of these. Now, if you're a quantity over quality guy, go with the Glocks. Just get yourself 2 Glocks and never talk about it again. But if you want quality, the 1911 is always going to be the way to go. It's going to be a better build. It's going to be a lot more hand fitting goes into it. It's just a lot older design, and it works, and that's why they're still around. People still buy them. Now we can get into these other newer ones, these fancier ones. Now this one's going to be a little bit more ergonomic than a Glock. This is an FN pistol. This is a 545 tactical. Now the reason I have something like this is it's got a threaded barrel on it for a suppressor. All the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. It's got a light and an optic on it, and that's just, this is my one let's soup it up, put everything under the sun on it pistol. Now this one is more ergonomic, and this one does have a better trigger than any Glock will ever have, but it's still not going to be comparable to a 1911 trigger. A Glock trigger is horrible when it comes comparing it to a 1911. See how spongy it is, and it's just not a good trigger when it comes to a handgun compared to like a 1911. This thing is a pretty decent trigger on this, but here's one thing you got to understand, folks, when you're looking at something like this. The reason people love Glock so much, and I told you, is they are cheap. I mean, they are one of the cheapest firearms you can buy, and you can modify them. The aftermarket support is just out of this world for these things. These, if you buy this FN pistol versus a Glock pistol, this is also about twice as much. It's going to cost the same about as a decent 1911. They're going to be about double of what a Glock is. So if you're going into it for the price, this thing's going to be a higher capacity, but it's also going to cost twice as much. Now, if this is the route you decide to go, nobody's saying not to. This one is going to be able to put the optic on it and the light on it. Now, I have videos about what I think about pistol optics and how I think they're a trend and everything, but this does have a way to mount a pistol optic. Most 1911s are not going to have that ability, but a 1911, this gun will shoot just as well as this gun with this optic on it. I'm telling you, I've shot them both, and it's very close, folks. The Glock's also going to shoot pretty well, but it's not going to be as accurate as a 1911. Now, what people don't fail to realize is handgun accuracy is only in the user. It's how well you can operate the handgun. And handguns are not precision rifles, folks. You just need to be able to 7 to 15 yards away, put a 3 or 4 inch group on center mass or something if you're using it for protection. Now you can get into, let's see how, if you can put into the same hole and stuff like that. It's going to be pretty difficult to do without really getting down and bench resting it on something, but accuracy is subjective. But if you put them all in a bench rest, this one's always going to be the most accurate pistol. But is it insignificant? Is it outdated? It's absolutely not outdated, and they would not still be manufacturing them if they were. It's a great design. It's been around for well over 100 years and very reliable. Very reliable, very well made, very good trigger, very accurate pistol on these things. Anyway, folks, if you have any questions on this, or you have any insight on whether a 1911 is outdated and what you think about it towards these more modern plastic polymer wonders, I like to call them, let me know what you think. And thank you very much for watching my video today, and you folks have a great day.